mandatories simply don't make sense. I think in order for you to be a mandatory, you have to be top three in the sanctioning body. Have relevancy to your name and the things that you've done in this game.
Welcome into boxing scene's top stories here on ProBox TV. Download the ProBox TV app now. Never fall behind in your boxing news. Well, big boxing news, of course, was ARTUR Beterbiev and his win over Dmitry Bivol, becoming the undisputed light heavyweight champion. But holding 4 belts is not easy. The IBF saying now he has to face a mandatory challenger. Had to look this up. Michael Eifert. I know, right? 13-1, 5 knockouts. Not really a test for ARTUR Beterbiev, but it's showing why, as a mandatory, the IBF might be out of its mind here. To help me break this down, Jimmy Smith in studio, Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri, Showtime, Sean Porter. Am I being harsh here, Paulie, talking about this? The IBF mandatory against a guy I've never heard of this guy. He's German. Once again, 13-1. We like mandatories. You know we need them. Is the IBF out of its mind?
You know, it's funny because in some ways I respect the IBF for not falling into the politics as easily as some of the other sanctioning bodies, do, where they don't enforce those mandatories. But then some of their mandatories have me wondering how this guy gets to be the mandatory position. You know, at least put us in a position where your mandatory has faced some opposition we're familiar with. You know, like at least like your Joshua Buatzis of the world, your Alexander Vostigs of the world, and so on and so forth. I'm a little bit confused because from one perspective, I do like that the IBF enforces mandatories and prevents the promoters and the fighters from playing the politics. But then it goes into another place where you start to wonder if they're playing their own politics. Politics against politics, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a difficult.
Let me go.
Go ahead, James. Go ahead.
I spoke to a sanctioning body one time, and I asked, what is the purpose of a mandatory? The response I got, the purpose of a mandatory is to make sure that a fighter gets put in position to fight for a belt that may not otherwise have that opportunity. So basically what I feel was being told to me was, I gotta say it. I cringe saying it. I gotta tell the truth. The money dictates where the belts go. Now they want to make sure that in order for there to be some way for them to intervene, they created this mandatory situation. So what we know is that the money is going to determine where these belts go, but at some point we're going to create a mandatory so that we get paid. We get our money. We make sure that we get ours. This money is going to go wherever the belts is going to go, wherever the money is dictating it goes. But we want to make sure that at some point we get more of what we need and what we want, and that's why the mandatory is in place.
Unless the champion who has the belt brings you all the money, and then you don't enforce the mandatory. Canelo.
We all know who Paulie's talking about when he says that. But Chris, I got to throw it to you. But this idea, as Paulie mentioned, that somebody, hey, I'm a boxing head. I had to look this guy up. He's barely starting his career. He's the IBF mandatory?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad Sean said it, because if you didn't say it, I was going to say it. It's all about the money. Follow the money.
I should let you say it.
Yeah.
I'll go back to letting you guys be the bad guys.
It's one of those things, man. If you want to figure out how things work, follow the money. And boxing's no different. And, this situation, Champ, Paul, you said, like, you kind of respect the IBF for being the only governing body that seems to be doing this and stripping these longtime champions, even though Beterbiev's not a longtime champion. It's right idea, bad execution. Because you're bringing in these fighters that don't really do anything for anyone except for the governing body. This fighter, the profile's not there. It's creating opportunity for money to get moved. That's really what it's doing. Because now you're going to get step-aside fees. So it keeps this economy going within the mandatory positions within these governing bodies. But it's just way too many places for corruption to slip itself in. And guys, this is boxing. This is not ever been known as being a very clean sport. And there's a lot of ways to produce more money, produce more opportunities to make money. And for me, that's what these kind of situations look like. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going on right now, but it just doesn't pass the sniff test for me.
When you look at it, Showtime, I want to go back to you to ask you about this. Budzenis, Jai Opetaia have had these title defenses that just don't make sense in order to keep their titles. Is it possible to keep the 4 belts in the 4-belt era and keep up with these mandatories at the same time?
Again, you know, especially when we're looking at a name that we don't really know, what we can say, and I hate that I have to say it, but what we can say is whatever percentage is supposed to go to the sanctioning body, they're going to get all of that now. There's no one else is cutting in and getting a piece of that chunk. And I believe that that's why the mandatories are put in place. Some mandatories simply don't make sense. I think in order for you to be a mandatory, you have to be top 3 in the sanctioning body. Have relevancy to your name and the things that you've done in this game to command you being a mandatory, not just somebody that is slipping in and just now becoming that top 10 or that top. Yeah, go ahead.
But Sean, I'm going to jump in here because there's also the other side of this, and this is why there's no really right or wrong answer here. It's because the other side of this is that some of these good fighters get stuck with weak promoters, you know, with promoters that probably should have been shining shoes or got a job at the circus. Instead, they're promoters, and now they're stuck in contracts with guys like this, and so their visibility isn't there. They might be pretty good fighters, but nobody sees them, nobody knows about them, and you know they work their way into mandatory positions as well. My problem is still the sanctioning body could still set up an eliminator against a well-known contender in the meantime, so that before you get that mandatory position, we get to know this lesser-known fighter that, you know, may have been winning. You know, there's still ways around this the way you work it correctly. Go ahead, Champ.
Well, you just told my career. That's exactly my position. I was an unknown fighter fighting on a local grassroots campaign to get myself into position. Had no ranking. I got brought in as a B-side against a guy who was ranked number 3 in the world, Emmanuel Taylor. He was set up to fight Ruslan Provodnikov. I ended up getting the win there. I beat him. I get ranked. I take his position. It puts me into that spot for the Ruslan fight. Ruslan was getting ready to make his first title defense and get a fight with Manny Pacquiao. I beat Ruslan. They put me in the Pacquiao fight. So, yeah, I agree, Champ. You know, there's both of you guys are making really good points. But I think the eliminator is important. So I don't think you should be a mandatory contender unless you're 1 or 2 and you fight an eliminator to get yourself into that position, to be the mandatory. Now you've earned that position. This guy, who has he fought? This is a deep weight class. We have a ton of talented fighters. There's 5, 6, 7 guys at 175 that are worthy to get to a mandatory position, but they got to fight each other. It should be easy. It makes sense, guys. It's rational. You beat the guy, you get the position, you fight for the title. This guy hasn't fought these guys, so I don't understand how you're going to just wedge him into a mandatory position.
Well, to be the man, you got to beat the man. If you want to know the names that Chris is talking about, check out our ranking show on the light heavyweight division. It's on our YouTube channel. Hopefully, when it comes to IBF, they don't strip him. Beterbiev gets a chance to be a 4-belt unified champion. We'll see what the future brings. And when that future comes around, of course, it will make boxing news, just like Tim Tszyu versus Murtaza Aliyev. A title fight, of course, an interview with Tim Tszyu is on our YouTube channel as well. Check it out. We'll be back with more boxing news.
Boxing superstar Tim Tszyu is coming to Prime Video. Don't miss this championship showdown as Tszyu takes on undefeated Murtaza Aliyev for the super welterweight world title. Saturday, October 19th, streaming live exclusively on Prime Video for all Prime members.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.